Yeah, hi guys, Ryan back with you here again. A little bit south of Florence, Kentucky, here on 7175 down to TA. Kind of south of Cincinnati, not the one quite up in Florence. That's a headache. But I'm only 3.5 hours or so from home here, and just wanted to do a little bit of an update. What's been going on the last week, and I've been a little bit transient since last weekend. So I had that load out of Los Angeles coming to Louisville, Kentucky. That was a drop and hook, which ended up being a 7-hour drop and hook. I think that's the longest I've had in history. And it wasn't the customer's fault. The agent there, he assumed it was loaded on a Friday, and he just assumed that it was going to be ready. But it was a hazardous waste shipment, according to the state of California. And they didn't get all the paperwork ready for it there on Friday, and they had put in the matrix that it wasn't going to be ready to go until 2 p.m. on Monday there. So I showed up there at 6 o'clock in the morning and ended up having to sit there. The time I got out there was 1 o'clock, and it kind of screwed up my whole routine. I was pretty frustrated about it, and that's just trucking. I mean, there ain't much you can do, but I couldn't do anything. It wasn't the customer's fault. The guy, if he didn't know definitively if it was going to be ready, then he shouldn't have gave me that info. So it kind of screwed up my schedule. I had to run over to the Ontario TA up there and park there and did an 8-hour sleeper break, and then I rolled out of the Los Angeles area, and I did 740 miles that night, did 750 miles the next night, and the night before last I did 720 miles. So I left Los Angeles Monday night and was down here to Louisville, Kentucky at 7:30 local time in the morning on Thursday. So 3 nights I did almost 2,200 miles. So it was pretty hectic, and was doing exactly 10-hour breaks and all that, so I didn't get the chance to update everything. I wanted to do a couple other videos, but I didn't get the chance to, just because the schedule and the hectic nature of it. So I apologize for that. But parked down here today, and I have no idea what this guy. I don't know what's wrong with some of these guys in there, but it's pretty distracting. But anyways, we so got down here. I got another load. I ended up getting another load out. I was planning on just driving back from Louisville up to Ohio, where I live. It's only about a 5-hour drive. I was just gonna dead back home if I didn't find anything. I ended up grabbing this load here, about 10 miles from where I was at, and it paid almost $3.50 a mile, going up to Cleveland, Elyria, not too far from where I'm at, my area. $1,100 on the load board rate, $3.50 a mile. So that gives me about $750 or so for laying over here for a night. But I went ahead and I was able to stay over there at the customers. They had a nice big parking lot, this chemical plant down there off of Campground Road over there, where all those chemical plants and whatnot are. So they had a nice lot. Went over there. I ran out of time, so I had to drive over there personal conveyance. I was looking at going to the Pilot or Petra, but I kind of knew that was going to be a disaster. But they ran me over my 14 hours, so I was able to get a nice, safe place to park. And I was able to pick this up this morning. And as you all know, I'm not a day driver. I don't like driving during the day. I know it just doesn't fit well with my personality and all that, and the way I like to run. So I ended up getting the load. I was gonna, I said, you know what, I'm gonna try to run back up to Cleveland area, Akron, Cleveland area, and maybe I can make it. It's only 5 hours. And 71 up through Kentucky here wasn't too bad. Then as soon as I hit this 71, 75 that you see behind me this morning, it was just a sea of trucks and cars and guys jumping out in front of you, 60, 55 mile an hour, whatever. And you know what I said? I've got this. This is a tanker load. So if you've ever pulled a tanker load in chemical totes, when you have to hit the brakes quickly, which if you're trying to run the speed limit, if you're trying to run 70 mile an hour up through Kentucky or Ohio, wherever it allows, when these guys are in the big crap line, where they're running 62, 63, whatever, no offense for you guys that are government or company drivers or whatever, But when these guys, when they decide they get tired of it and they whip it out in the left lane, and they're going, and when the time they whip it out, they're down to 55, 60 mile an hour, and I'm cruising along 70, and you slam on your brakes, and you got a chemical tote load like this, it just surges and surges and surges. And I said, you know what, I'm not going to do this all day. I'm not going to do this for 4 or 5 hours all the way up 71, you know, through Cincinnati, Columbus, and up to Cleveland. I'm not going to do it all day. So I just shut it down here. I'm going to wait till about 11 o'clock tonight, and then it'll be a lot more peaceful drive up there. I mean, after you've been out for 2.5, 3 weeks, I mean, what's another 10 hours? You know, I'm going to take a week and a half, 2 weeks off up there at home. So it's just a lot. You know, you got to know your limits. You know, your equipment limits, your mental and physical limits as a person. And you know, I don't like to drive in that, so it's just not. I talked to my wife, and she's like, yeah, just park and call it a day. It just ain't worth it to deal with these people that want to do that crap out here on the road, that see a guy coming and all that, and want to jump out in front of you so they can go 1 mile an hour, 2 mile an hour faster. So so that's my rant for the day, I guess you could say. But we're doing this new Q&A session thing off the comments. I've got a list of comments in the truck. You know, it might be a little bit loud out here, so I'm gonna get in there and go over that list and talk about all that. But the other thing I want to talk about is parking. And like I said, this place is like 75% reserved parking, and I like reserved parking myself. I know a lot of guys complain about it and all that, but it's nice. I use my points or my shower credits on TA, Petro, and I don't typically have to pay for it out of pocket, but it doesn't matter anyways because it's a tax deduction for me on my expenses. So I don't have a problem with it, and I like it because I know if I'm running tight on hours, it gives me a chance. You know, I don't have to, if they're full and there's some a-hole that's parked where he shouldn't be, I go in and tell them, and they do what they got to do. I know we respect, you know, it's their property, and people are paying for these spots. And like for me, if I know if I'm gonna be coming in late, I can run my clock down, and I don't have to worry about not having a spot. No matter if it's TA, Petro, Flying J, Pilot, whatever. I like that versatility and that you know, that assurance that I don't have to. I'm gonna come into some place where I've ran 10 hours and 50 minutes and I got 10 minutes left. I know that, you know, that assurance that I'm gonna have a spot, and if I don't, 95% of the time, if there's somebody that isn't supposed to be parked there, they're gonna make a move. Which there's a sign up, you know, you pay for it. I mean, there's no. There's, like I said, a lot of people complain about that. But I don't think, I mean, you know, I speak my mind out here. I think I speak the truth. And there's a lot of guys say, oh, there's a parking shortage, and, you know, this and that. And I don't think there's a parking shortage. I think what we have is an overage of drivers that want to do all the same stuff at the same time of the day. I mean, as you can see behind me, it's like 4 o'clock here right now, and this lot is basically half empty, even though it is a lot of reserved spots. But what I see during the days that I do have to drive during the day against my will, or if it fits into whatever schedule of the load for whatever reason, if I'm getting paid more and I go ahead and get into a fit of stupidity and take the load, even though I don't like doing it, it seems like everybody wants to get on the road at the same time. Everybody wants to do it be 9 to 5, or, you know, want to get on the road at 10 o'clock and run till 10 or 11, and then come in these places like you're going to get a parking spot, and it's already full. It's already over. And it used to be back, you know, 20, 30 years ago, where there was a lot more drivers that ran at night like I do, and it kind of broke it up to where it was half and half, or, you know, 70-30. So now, I don't know if it's these companies are pushing it, or guys just don't like running at night, or different schedules or whatever, or starting earlier. Start at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and run till 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And that puts you in here where you're going to get a better spot or whatever. You don't have to worry about it. It kind of breaks up the same thing. But it seems like you got a lot of 9 to 5ers out here and all that, where everybody wants to. This is not a regular job. This ain't where you're going to the office at 9 o'clock and you go ahead and park at 5 o'clock. I know there's a lot of companies that think for safety reasons or whatever, they try to push that, but that ain't the way that it was meant to be out here. I mean, there's plenty of parking but not if everybody wants to run the same schedule. Everybody wants to get started at the same time. Everybody wants to get fuel at the same time. Everybody wants to come in and have lunch at the same time. Everybody wants to take a 30-minute break at the same time. Everybody wants to pull in and get fuel again at the same time. Then everybody wants to try to park at night between 6 and 10. It just don't work out. So you can say parking short as much as you want, but I don't think that's a problem. I think we have too many people out here that want to do the same thing at the same time, and it doesn't work because, like I said, with my schedule, I don't have a problem. As you can see, I mean, there's 15 spots right there. On the other side of my truck, there's another 10 spots, and I don't want to deal with that every day. I mean, if you like sitting in line, fuel lines, I like pulling in and getting fuel at 2 o'clock in the morning because there's nobody there, and then I don't feel like an a-hole when I pull up to the line and take my 30 minutes at the same time because I'm not bothering anybody. There ain't a big line. You know, because I don't want to hold anybody up. So I'm not going to sit here at 11 o'clock when everybody's pulling in for lunch and sit at the fuel line and have 6 trucks backed up behind me and all that. So that's just that. And I know I went way longer on that rant than I anticipated, but I'm going to get into that Q&A we had there, the list my wife put together. We'll go through a few of those questions, and then we'll wrap up with that, and that'll be basically the end of this trip. We did pretty well. First week out, settlement was like $31.50, you know, direct deposit. Last week was like $2,500, but that tire in Cheyenne finally caught up with me. So that took about $450, so I was about $2,000 after that. And I think with this load, which is kind of the cherry on top for this week, after that load from Los Angeles over here to Louisville, and like I said, there was basically no deadhead. Louisville, you know, up to Cleveland, so basically no deadhead on each end, and I'll be home tomorrow, Saturday morning. But I think we'll be about $3,000 plus for this week, so that puts me about $8,500 before a truck payment and before that tire. So even if I take a truck payment and the tire out, you know, you're about $2,000. So about 2.5 weeks, I guess, will be $6,500 or so, I think, roughly. Before we'll do the math, we'll do a full settlement video probably next Wednesday or Thursday when I'm at home, and you know, kind of do the final numbers on this trip. But I'm pretty satisfied with that, I think. Then I'm going to take about a week and a half, 2 weeks off to get this house on the market and all that. But anyways, I'll go ahead and get to those questions. We're going to go back in the truck here where it's a little bit quieter, and we'll wrap up from there. Alright guys, so I'm back in the truck here, and I got my list of questions from the comments and all that. And I'm going to go through a few of these here. So top question here, or top of the list, from Spanish Bull, screen name. It says, I don't get it. Why do you guys have to be tied up on a lease for 5 years when you can save money, go to the public auctions, and buy a good truck for $20,000? The problem with that in these cheaper trucks out here is that, yeah, you can buy a cheap truck up front, but if you're not mechanically inclined, you don't really know what you're going to get into. I mean, if you're going to run local, you know, 150-mile radius, do C-boxes, local, whatever you got going on, that may be fine, but the time you start putting a lot of miles on a truck like that, you know, a nice cheap truck with, you know, tire mileage, there's a reason these trucks sell for those prices. And if you don't really know what you're getting into or know how to work on that stuff yourself, you know, like I said, you guys watch my videos, I do a lot of different stuff myself. I put an EGR cooler on this truck, turbo on this truck myself, and if I had to pay somebody to take this truck, you know, into a shop, I could gotten into tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, you could get into $30,000-$40,000 into a truck pretty quickly. So it's a hard debate. So yeah, unless you really know what you're looking at and what you're doing and all that, then you're mechanically inclined. Or unless you want to just run local, I mean, within a few hundred miles of the house, I me personally, even with my experience and what I know, I probably wouldn't get into something like that, because I think the other side that you have to look at is your reputation, and the other associated cost. It's not just when you have downtime, um, you're losing revenue. So I mean, if you're down for a week, I mean, you could be losing $3,000, $4,000 in revenue by sitting for that week. Then on top of that, you're paying for the repairs, and labor and all that on top of that. Or if you have a payment, you're paying the payment. That don't stop. So I mean, it can snowball, and where a week down can cost you an extreme amount of money. So I mean, if you're not mechanically inclined, and I mean you're wanting to get out there and run, I don't really recommend getting into something like that. I mean, and there's pros and cons. I'm not against a lease purchase or anything like that. I mean, there's pros and cons. I mean, you really have to look at the contracts. You get into these new trucks. I mean, you get into FET, which is a 12% tax if you're going to go buy a brand new truck. And I mean, where you might be able to buy a 50,000 or 100,000 mile truck where that's already been paid. I mean, it's only paid once. So if you're looking, at 150, 130, 150,000 dollar trucks, you got a 12% tax on top of that. That when you drive that truck off the lot, that's gone. That's completely gone, and it gets added. I mean, if you are buying that truck, I mean, it gets put onto your loan. And not only are you paying a 12% tax, I mean, you're paying anywhere from 6 to 15% interest on top of that tax, which could be upwards $15,000 to $20,000 depending on the truck that you're buying. So, I mean, that's like buying, that tax is on a big truck, or expensive truck. That tax alone is like another vehicle payment. If you went down and bought a $20,000 car, it's like you're paying interest on a little car and on the truck. So that's something to think about. I'm not against buying a cheap truck, but it's finding a balance in between your abilities, your mechanical abilities, and your financial goals and all that. So you have to kind of find, and your home time and all that as well. So you got to kind of find a happy medium in between all that, and find out what works for you and what you can make and all that. So that's, I need to do, I'm planning on doing a whole video on this lease purchase, a regular buying a truck, and all that. So we'll get into that down the road. I know I promised a lot of stuff, that my weeks sometimes get a little bit crazy out here, just like it did this week. So I'll move on to the next question here from Stick and Clutch. How can you tell it's a brokered load or not? Okay, on the Landstar board, you can actually filter out brokered loads or Landstar loads, and that'd be a direct. There's a search in there. I'll show you guys on the next settlement if I do a load board update on the board. You can actually you can search for a direct shipper. So if it's not a direct shipper, like if you search direct shipper or on the load board, I'll show you guys down the road here. Just say direct shipper N or Y, yes or no. And if it's a no, then that load is through a third party. It's not a Landstar load. If it's a yes, it's a Landstar direct account. And I do a lot of those loads. I'm not against them, but it seems like with the Landstar loads, most of the time it's a little bit more cordial experience. It's a little bit smoother. And you typically get better rates, and there's a lot more obviously more drop and hooks with Landstar freight. So that is that. Next question from Raheen Dolls, if I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry if I butchered that. Do they allow children 13 plus? I just talked to Landstar. I called Contractor Services to ask this question because I wasn't 100% sure, so I got that information for you guys. And it is for age 12 and older. So if you have a child that's 12 years or older, you call Landstar and you sign a release form or whatever, and you can put them on the insurance, and they can ride with you. So it's 12 years and older, is what I was just told by Contractor Services directly at Landstar. All right. Okay, so next question is, I'm sorry with these names. I'm not that. I'm better with numbers. Stoyan Kalev. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Hey Ryan, you mentioned a couple of times liftgate loads on the Landstar board. Could you elaborate a little bit farther? Are there enough of these loads on the board, or are they something rare? When I had my searches open, when I was leaving the van LG loads on there, there wasn't a whole lot. And I mean, if there's other Landstar guys that actually have a lift gate, maybe they might know agents or can elaborate on that. But I took them off my searches because it was frustrating, because it would seem like that one load that I would have liked to have taken or been in my area and it was paying like $4 or $5 a mile, which is pretty crazy anyways. Those would typically be, I would call about it or look at it closer, and it would be a liftgate load. So they're not real common. I don't think they're common enough to where I would put a liftgate. Even if I had a trailer or I would buy a trailer, I don't think I would actually buy one, because I don't think they're that, because if you have that, depending on what type of liftgate you have, it can screw up your chances at other places. I mean, some of these docks, they have that hook that hooks onto the trailer, and if you got a liftgate gear and all that underneath there, you might not be able to go to back into their docks, where they have that little ramp thing with the hook. So that could kind of screw you out of other loads. So I don't know, unless you really knew somebody or what that was all about, I don't think that would be something that I would invest in. Plus you got that much more weight hanging off the back of the trailer and all that. So I like I said, unless you had an in and you knew somebody, if you were at Landstar for a while and you got in with an agent that had a lot of those loads, and I knew it'd be worth it, I might, invest in one. But it's not something that I see. Even when I had it on my searches, I didn't see a lot of those loads where I could go anywhere I wanted. And I think that liftgate underneath would hinder you from a lot of, taking loads from other places. Okay, next question. And this is I'm going to butcher this one too. Alex Detrus de Locomeris. So hello, my friend. Thanks for the tips. I will submit an application to Landstar. Can you help me with this question? Do you have to buy a truck before you get qualification or after? You can apply with Landstar and get qualified on the driver's side all the way up to the point where you need a truck. I talked to several guys. I got several guys that I talk to by phone right now that they don't have trucks yet, but they're actually approved to go to Landstar and all that. And I think if you don't have a truck yet, that's probably the smarter way to go. Go ahead and get approved, and then be looking at trucks and all that. Then once you get final approval with your driving record and all that, and driving history, then go ahead and buy a truck. That's kind of the smarter bet. But yeah, you can do that. Okay, Robert Allred, I believe. He's talking about the PDI tuner that I have. Said he likes it, but it looks like it plugs into the same spot as my OD. There's several companies out there that make like a T or a splitter, wire where it have, both the plugs. PDI might be able, if you call them, they might be able to offer that, or you might be able to find it through somebody else. But there are, because mine actually has a splitter in it now. It has where it goes up to the truck, then it has it where it goes to the ELD, then I have the male socket to where it actually goes down to my PDI. So mine actually has like a splitter or a Y in it right now. So that is an option as well. And they actually put this in down at Mercer when I got this ELD down there. And I already had my PDI and everything hooked up, so they put that splitter in there for me. So so that is an option as well if you want a PDI or something like that, or Bully Dog or whatever, where it punks into your 9-pin. Okay, Josie Yosef, I believe. Do you need your own trailer, or need your own truck and trailer to be with Landstar? How does it work to be with Landstar, as in requirements wise? So you have to have your own truck as a minimum. You can get your trailer through Landstar, and that's if you're coming out. If you don't have a trailer and you're coming over, I recommend just using a company trailer off the bat, and so you can kind of feel things out, see what there is. I mean, I do a lot of drop and hook loads, and it seems like they pay more than a lot of the live loads do. So in my particular situation, I don't think I would ever invest in my own trailer for an extra 7% with the time you figure paying for the truck, depreciation, maintenance, and the loss of flexibility, because I can do any load that Landstar has basically. with a company van as far as dropping hooks and or live loads, where if you have your own trailer, you phase out, you know, probably 30% of the loads on the board, as far as the dropping hooks go, so you kind of limit yourself. So I would see what's out there before you bring, if you don't have a trailer, see what's out there, come over to Landstar first, see what's out there, and then if you're not doing dropping hooks, and then go buy a trailer. I mean, or if it makes sense to you, but in my particular situation, it doesn't make sense. So the second part is that how does it work with Landstar requirements wise? You need at least 1 year over the road. So if you've been driving local for a year, depending on how you present that, they may decline you. That's the main thing. Obviously, I think 2 accidents or 2 tickets in the last 3 years or something of that nature. But that's all, you know, that's something you guys need to talk to them about. Yeah, the main thing's that 1 year experience, and they're pretty strong about that, as far as how they scrutinize that. So yeah, I don't know. This other question's asked me to watch a video, and I haven't watched that video. So does anyone know what's the best carburetor for a 2017 Volvo? That PDI HGS, or not the PDI, but the Bosch HGS 200 or 250. My dad has a Volvo, and the Bosch works on his truck just like it works on my truck, basically. So that's not a bad code reader for the Volvo as well. So you guys might want to check that out. Somebody's asking about, please do a video how to weigh a loaded trailer. Yeah, I will. Next time I scale my trailer, I will show you guys how I do that, and some other little tricks and tips as far as where to look at the back of the load and where to move your tandems, and I'll scale all that out. So that's kind of something I got to do when I'm actually doing it, when I got some time. So I will get into that. So that is noted. Okay, from Richie Matthews. Thanks for the info. 23 years old, been driving for 2 years. Do you suggest saving up and buying a truck with cash versus making payments and going to Landstar now? Thanks for the videos. It really depends. Like, again, it goes back to the first question we talked about today about, you know, buying a $20,000 truck or whatever. And I didn't mention something about that as far as cheap trucks as well. Another topic that I'll talk about here in a second. Again, it really depends on your comfort level and your personal financial situation, and your mechanical abilities and all that. If you're coming into the business, I would recommend something probably under 400,000 miles, just to hopefully give you a good start, without having any problem. You know, get you through at least a year to where you can kind of, you know, get some money saved up and bank a little bit of money and you know, pay stuff off, whatever you got to do, because you don't want to just start with problem after problem after problem, because then you're going to get into the red real quick and have a lot of issues. So it really depends on how much money you're talking about saving. I mean, if you got $50,000-$60,000 saved up, then yeah, go buy a truck. I mean, a decent truck with, you know, 350 to 400,000, maybe 450,000 miles. I mean, I got this truck we got this at 480. And I mean, but we've done a lot of work to it and all that, but I've done it all myself. So it's just really, if you're not comfortable taking care of stuff, I mean, the thing about payments is, okay, you can buy a $700 a month truck that's got 800,000-900,000 miles on it, but the thing is, if you're relying on shops, I mean, when you get to that, I don't care if it's rebuilt or not or whatever, had an M-frame. It's just the frame, the wiring harness, the emission systems, transmission, drive lines, and all that. The stuff gets tired, it gets wore out, and it needs maintenance. And if you're depending, you know, you get something, oh, I'm only paying you know, $700 or $1,000 a month, and I've got this truck with 750,000 miles. And if you're relying on these shops for every little thing, every time you're going to be spending. Every time you go to the shop, you're going to be in $1,000. I mean, if you go to the shop 2 or 3 times a week, or 2 or 3 times a month, I mean, you could easily get into $2,000 or $3,000 a month that you're putting into this truck. When and then not to mention the downtime, where either you're going to hurt your reputation, or lose revenue where you're down, where you're not making money. And the other thing about reputation, I mean, some of these, like at Landstar, these agents, like I said, I don't have to call them. I see I make it, if I have a bad experience with an agent, I save their number, and I put do not call, and I don't deal with them again. It's the same way with the agents. I mean, if you screw them, by you not being on time or managing your schedule or whatever, I mean, if it's your fault, it's your fault. It is what it is. But if your truck's constantly breaking down and all that, and you can't keep it under control, then these agents, they'll blacklist you. They'll say, yeah, I'm not going to work with you. And it's the same thing with any broker, or like Landstar or whoever. I mean, Coyote, all those companies. Like if your truck's breaking down and you can't be there on time and you're dropping loads, I mean, these people are not going to work with you, because it makes them look bad. I mean, so that's another thing you have to look at when you get into these older trucks that are wore out. It's not only the money, it's your reputation, and these people working with you. They're not going to want to have a business relationship with you if you can't deliver on your contracts, your promises. So that's something else to think about. And with that truck price again, I've had people talk to me a lot about international trucks, these ProStars with max forces, N14s, A26s. And my advice on those, and there might be guys out there that disagree, but you see something with a international ProStar with a max force or an N14, they're cheap for a reason. You see these trucks with 380,000 miles that are $30,000 or whatever. My advice is to run the opposite direction as far as you can and stay away from those trucks, because there is a reason that those trucks are priced like that. And that's because they had on the EGR coolers on those, the turbos, EGR valves and all that on that engine, that particular engine, the max force in the N14, has a 100% fail rate. That thing is going to fail. And most of them, even if it's been like diamond renewed, you'll get maybe 100,000 miles out of it. And I don't care if you buy the warranty or have the warranty or not. The warranty is going to cover the repairs, but it's not going to cover getting towed, your downtime. It's not going to cover your payment if you have a payment on it. So my advice, if you see something that's too good to be true, it usually is too good to be true. And like I said, there may be guys out here that have run around and had a little bit of successful and all that for a while, that may be contrary to what I'm saying, or disagree. But if you're going to haul seed boxes in a local 150-mile radius, then yeah, go ahead and buy one. But if you're looking to run like I do, cross country, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 miles, I would run the opposite direction as far and as fast as you can from those trucks. That's just my. There's other than that, that international engine, that max force N14 A26 engine in those. The other problem is they get really cheap on the wiring on those, where they shortened up all the harnesses, and you'll have even on the LTs, the ones with the big goofy mirrors and all that on them. They're running around out these days. They did the same things. I've talked to guys that have them. They have wiring nightmares. They shorten them up. It pulls the wiring apart, pulls the wires out of sensors and all that. And I was pretty disappointed that when they came out with that LT, that it's a smack in the face. It's a disgrace that they didn't fix. They went ahead and they made a bulkier hood. They put those big goofy mirrors on them like a Dodge pickup. And they put a different dash in it, and they didn't fix any of the problems. They didn't fix the wiring. They didn't fix the short airlines. The cab still bumps around like a big bobblehead thing. And and on the ProStars, the suspension on the cab and the sleeper was terrible. It had 2 airbags and a strap. It didn't even have shocks on it. You had to buy like that Pro Ride aftermarket deal just to have a decent ride, like a Kenworth or a Pete or whatever. I would just my opinion on those. I mean, other people may say otherwise. I would stay away from them. I would never buy international, just because even the newer ones, just for the simple fact that they didn't fix those problems. It's a smack in the face to people, I think. You just pretty much polished a turd, in my opinion. And again, that's to be debated. Okay, next question here, and I know we're getting pretty long here. Why Landstar, not your own authority? I like Landstar because my costs are low. If I wanted to go out and run 30 days a month or something, or if I was single, I want to go on a road and just run and run and run, then I might consider my own authority. But the reason I like Landstar is because my fixed costs are so low, especially with the truck that I have. I mean, other than my truck payment, my costs through Landstar are like $115 a week. So if I want to stay at home for a week, I'm not paying for a trailer. I'm not paying, $300-400 a week, or $500, for insurances. I mean, if I got my own authority, I'm leaving about $13,000 a month for insurance. I mean, that's over $1,000 a month I'm gonna pay just for insurance, and that doesn't stop. I mean, that keeps, whether you run all month or 1 week a month, you're paying that, $1,200 a month for insurance. There's no discounts. I mean, I'm averaging, 50, 60, 75 cents a gallon on fuel discounts at TA and Petro. I mean, I get Pilot, Flying J, and Love's about 25 to 35 cents a gallon off. Other than that, tire discounts. I'll show you guys when I do the settlement statement, this Bridgestone steer that I put on. Just for the tire, if I was cash and carry at TA out in Cheyenne where I got that tire, she quoted me $615 just for the tire on this truck. I just got my little settlement thing from Landstar on this tire deal, and I think they charged me through Landstar's group discount, Bridgestone 16 ply steer tire, 284 tire. I paid $335, I think, for that tire. I mean, out the door with mounting, balancing, installation, all the other nonsense tire fees, environmental, government fees, taxes, whatever. I was out the door for $450, where if I would have bought that tire, just the tire was $615 if I would have had to buy that cash or on a credit card or whatever. And then you add everything else, and I'd have been $800 for one tire. I can get, through Landstar, I can get a set of 16 ply Bridgestone tires, top of the line, a set of them for $900. I mean, it's a no-brainer to me. And like I said, I like my free time. If I want to take 2 weeks off, go on vacation, if I need got stuff to do at home, I like that flexibility. And I think if I went to my own authority, the time I pay for a trailer. Another thing they don't tell you is factoring. These companies, when you work with these brokers, C.H. Robinson, Coyote, Convoy, DATS, whoever, they don't pay you every week. They're going to pay you 30 to 60 days out. So if you want your money now and you need your money now, you're going to have to go through factoring. You're going to pay 2 to 7%, depending on who you go through and depending on what package you get. So there's another, couple percent. You're not going to get any discounts, and you got all those fixed costs. I mean, you're going to have time you buy a trailer, you figure maintenance, depreciation, all that. I mean, without a truck payment, without a truck, if you owned your truck, you're going to be in $2,000 a month before you leave the house. Then you figure in the factoring fee and all that, and you're basically, you're knocked right down. Okay, you might get 82, 88% or whatever, but by the time you figure all those other costs in, you're knocked right back down to 70, 65%. So, and my cost at 65% with Landstar and the surcharge, I don't pay those costs on all this stuff unless I'm moving. So if I'm sitting at home, if I want to take time off, my costs are very minimal, and I like that flexibility. But again, like I said, if you're a guy, if you're single, man or woman or whatever, and or if you have an arrangement with your spouse, partner, whatever, and you want to get out there and run, and you're not worried about it, then you can make those costs pay for it, and you might be better off and be ahead. But for my situation, for what I like to do, and I've talked to other guys, I think, in my opinion, it's a failed model, and it doesn't make any sense unless you're going to go out there and run, unless you're going to live on a road. Because that's the only way to make those fixed costs and the loss of the discounts and all that add up, is to run. Where I don't want to do that. I like my free time and all that, so, and my time off. Another question on here about leases and purchases and credit and all that. I'm going to do a whole, we've brought this up in a couple of questions here. I'm going to talk about that whole topic in another video as far as lease purchases and all that. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with a lease purchase and truck payments. I've talked about truck payments, and it really just depends on your home time goals and what you want to make, what you want to do. I mean, if you just want to have a big truck and nice, W900 or a big high dollar Volvo or Peterbilt, whatever. I mean, if you want to get out there and run, then that's fine. But if you're planning on being home every weekend and you want to make $1,500, $2,000 a week after expenses, you're going to have with a $3,000 or $4,000, a $2,500, $4,000 truck payment. You're going to have issues. I mean, you're going to be frustrated, and you're not going to have much flexibility. You're going to have a lot of pressure on you if you want to get into a big truck payment and think that you're going to be home every weekend or whatever. It's extremely hard to do. I mean, I've got a pretty relatively cheap truck payment, and I've tried running the local regional stuff and popping in the house, every couple of days, and I've never made the revenue I want to make. And and if I had a $3,000 truck payment, it would just exacerbate that even more, where I wouldn't be making near the money I'm making, and that's not my goals. I mean, I'm trying to pay off all my debts and get back to zero and build a little nest egg. And like I said, my wife and all that, she works, she has insurance, so that's a plus. But I'm not looking to live out here on the road. I got a 3.5-year-old and a half-year-old basically now, and my intentions are not to live out here on this road. I mean, I want to go ahead. We've agreed to make the sacrifices we have to make for a short term, for a year or two, to come out here and make the big bucks and pay everything off and right all of our past mistakes with buying cars that we shouldn't have got, and just stupidity in our younger days. And so making a sacrifice now, we're almost again, like I said, last September I was close to $40,000 in credit card debt. Now I'm down to about $6,500, $7,000 in the course of 9-10 months basically. And it's because I keep my expenses low, I'm willing to make sacrifices, and I follow the money. So it just depends on what I mean, there's a lot of guys say, oh, I got a $4,000 SFI. I mean, I had an SFI truck, so I'm not going to tell you that's a wrong choice. It just depends on your situation. But there's guys out there that say, oh, I got a $4,000 a month truck payment, I'm making it. I mean, it just depends on what your definition of making it is. I mean, if you're happy making $1,500 a week before expenses with no benefits, and you think you're making it, then that's fine. But that's and no offense, that's just not my idea of making it. I want to be doing, when I'm out on the road, I want to be doing $2,500 plus a week, after expenses. So it's just all with what your personal goals are and plans are, as far as, so that's what you have to look at when you go on these truck payments. But with that, I would not get into a $3,000 a month truck payment, and with all the other expenses, because your insurance is going to be a lot higher. I mean, your insurance on those trucks, just the truck, excluding everything else, you're probably going to be in the $500 a month in insurance. Where I'm at with my truck, I'm at 137, I believe, to be exact, right around there. So you get a $3,000 truck, you add $600 a month for insurance, you're in the $3,600. Then you add everything else, your plates, $2,290. Bobtail insurance, workman's comp, or contractor protection plan. You can have pretty soon you're into $6,000, and just expenses, fixed expenses, not including fuel or anything like that. So it just depends on what your goals are and what your expectations are. So next question. Okay, Lazaro Lanes, I believe that's how it's said. Thanks for all the videos, guys. I'm planning to go with Landstar, but I don't know how busy we are in New Mexico area. Do you have any ideas in this area? New Mexico, there's really good rates coming in New Mexico, but kind of coming out is a little bit tricky. I've got stuff out of California. I've seen stuff out of California going to New Mexico that's paying $4 a mile. Some of it's like Home Depot stuff, drop and hook. I've hauled fireworks down there, which are pretty good loads. But there's good freight coming in to New Mexico typically. And West Texas is kind of grouped into that, and part of Arizona. But when you're kind of coming out, you're gonna take a hit coming out of there. The rates are not. I wouldn't, on the board, the Landstar board, I typically don't see anything, because I'm down in that area a lot. I typically don't see anything over $2 a mile. If you're getting over $2 a mile on the Landstar board, which puts you, $1.35-ish, $1.40-ish to the truck. It's not very often you're going to see more than that. So that's one of those areas where I would expect when you're coming out of the house, you're going to see cheaper rates. But when you come back in, you get a little bit higher rates. So that kind of makes up for it. So if that answers that question. Okay, from March is the viewer name. Perfect video. Can you tell me what are the symptoms that an air dryer is going out? Mine keeps throwing out purge valve. Someone said that it could be the whole air dryer system, which I doubt. What do you say? I would change the filter or the cartridge on the air dryer and see what happens out of that. I see it seems to be a problem with the Freightliners, the older Columbias. Those classic XXL, whatever they are, all those the older Freightliners. I don't know all the names of them. I'm not a Freightliner guy, but I hear sometimes I hear those trucks run. I don't know what type, if they got an ADSP or an ADP, whatever. There's a couple of different types of air dryers, but I hear them. They'll be like every 22 seconds. You can like time it. It's so annoying, and a lot of times it could be just the cartridge on the air dryer. It's plugged up and it's not absorbing the moisture and it's not doing its job. So you can change the filter on it and see what happens. And a lot of times that could be the issue. But if it's the actual purge valve itself, you can go buy a whole new air dryer assembly. And the problem is sometimes those sit on the shelf for 2 or 3 years. And if you watch that video when I put that purge valve in, when I was reading instructions, that grease in those is very temperamental. So if you get an old unit, a whole unit, and you put in there and it's a couple years old, that purge valve might go out in 2 or 3 months because it's dry. The seals are dried up and dry rotted and they'll cut, and it'll blow out. It'll blow out the purge valve, and you can replace that big snap ring in there. If you're watching that video that I did, you can replace the purge valve, and it's only like $100, and that usually. They're a lot fresher, the grease and everything on, because they go through, the logistics process. They get sold a lot better, more than what a whole air dryer unit does. So I would, the first step in that, I would change the filter on the air dryer or the cartridge. I mean, depending on what type you have. Some of them have the big cup that goes there where it's got the big clamp, and you take it off and there's actually a cartridge that goes in there, or you have the spin on. And sometimes those spin-ons can be a pain to get off, but the main thing if you're going to change either one of them, make sure you drain your tanks and bleed off. If you have if you got 5 pounds of air in that system, it is close to impossible to get those filters off. And the other one with the clamp is a little bit dangerous if you're taking it off with air in it. So make sure you got your system completely bled out, whether you drain the air tanks and feather off the pedal, or whatever you got to do. Or a lot of times you can unhook your air line from the trailer and hold in the trailer, the red valve, the trailer valve, and force it in, and you can drain the tanks out with that. But you want to have 100% of the air out before you mess with that system, because it can be close to impossible to get those filters off of those units. But I would start with the filter or the cartridge. Then I can't see the whole system being. I mean, you can have I've lost the word. The governor can be bad too, to where it's kicking the pump in and out, or the compressor in and out. And the reed valves on the compressor can be bad as well, which will cause that to not compress, not build air properly. So, but I would start with the filters, then probably move down to the purge valve, and then start looking at the governor or whatever. But most times when it's doing that, where it's blowing off every 20 seconds, it's because these guys, they never changed the filters or the elements on that air dryer. So I would try that. So that pretty much wraps up what I had for this week, what the wife sent me here. We'll do this again next week. I'm gonna try to do this as a weekly thing, answering these questions. And I just got extremely long here. So hope you all enjoyed the video. Again, if you got any questions, post them on the comments and we'll go through them. I mean, I like to give long, descriptive answers, and that's why I've we're getting with the subscriber volume, and now we're over 2,200 subscribers, I believe, today. We appreciate all the support, and I just appreciate all the subscribers and all that, and all the compliments and comments. So it's just with my, if you watch, I run pretty hard when I'm out on the road. I run 700 miles plus every night. And it's I need my relaxation time when I'm done with that and dealing with everybody on the roads. So we've kind of went to this new system where she's gonna go through all the comments, and we'll do a video on the questions. So because I just don't want to to shortchange anybody. I like to do a nice quality answer, and it's it takes me long to do that. I either want to do it or I don't want to do it. I don't want it to not. I want to stick with my beliefs and virtues, and I want to put in good quality answers. And it's just hard to go through 20 questions and write, you know, a paragraph or two on each question like I typically do. So we're kind of going to this now where it makes it a little bit easier for us to be in touch with everybody, a little bit more interactive. So if you got any questions, post them in the comments, and we'll go through all those and get back to you via video, hopefully the following week that they're posted, and try to stay up on those. But again, we appreciate all the support. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and be safe out there. We'll see you next time.